Hi, everyone, and hope everyone's doing great. And thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for watching and the comments and subscribing if you haven't already. Subscribe to, give it a thumbs up if you like the video. And let me know if you have any ideas or suggestions, questions. I'm learning too a lot as I go, and I love this kind of dialogue to learn and share with other people. So it's much appreciated. Thank you. Speaking of which, so one of my friends had a great question the other day, Diana. So thank you for that. It was a really great question because I've kind of thought. Oh, okay, sorry. So real quick, it is basically so two questions. One is the Shroud of Turin. Is it real? And number two, how much of the Bible, she was asking, do I believe is accurate? And I've had a lot of questions over the past few years. I spent a lot of time kind of exploring that in general, like the idea of Earth and our religions and our attempt to understand life, to try and find the underlying truth. And that's where a lot of my answers come from. And I think there's a lot of great truths in there. I'll get into that in a second too. So I thought that was a brilliant question. And then I asked a lot more questions too over the past couple of days to try and add more detail and information to that. So it was great. And then, so two-part. Shroud of Turin, is it real? And then how much do I believe the Bible is actually accurate? So the Shroud of Turin, just to preface, like when you're doing channeling sessions and that type of thing, or when you're asking questions using like spiritual or psychic abilities, you can talk to anyone at all times. So, for example, like if you want to talk to Jesus from the Bible, he is available 24/7. It's pretty cool if you think about it, and everyone is, believe it or not. So, everyone that was once from physical Earth actually makes themselves available for communication. And remember, infinity, just the idea, the concept itself, is realized and a reality in the afterlife, meaning anything you can attach that word to: infinite life, infinite time, infinite possibility, meaning Jesus is available 24/7 and can speak to multiple people at the same time in multiple languages. So infinity is a great like foundational concept to understand how things work really without bounds in the afterlife. Here we're more limited to, physical rules and that sort of thing. But so point being, it's just a matter of asking, hey, I've got a question for you, and then you can start the conversation immediately with him. So I started with the Shroud of Turin. I remember reading about this actually a few years ago. Not 100% familiar with it, but I did some more reading on it, and it is the burial shroud. You can research it. There's some cool pictures online. It's like it's a face and a body, allegedly of Jesus. It was supposed to be his, what they're saying is possibly it's his burial shroud, and there's markings on it and that sort of thing, and anatomically like correct and everything. The question is it real or not? Is it valid? And that actually hasn't been, from what I understand, completely validated yet. So the shroud itself, as amazing as it looks, from what I understand, is not real. So it's not the true burial shroud that he was buried in. So I'd actually began these conversations with him directly and asked him about that. And then there's had some back and forth, and I wrote this down too. So in fact, I've got it right here. Make sure I didn't forget it. So I asked him about the patterns on it, and because there's several theories about how they got there, and what he had said is it's not my burial shroud. It was made by a man, he said. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So someone actually, like a human, like someone who was down here who did that. It was created after he died, actually. So when, I don't know. I didn't get that answer, but it was created after he died. And what's interesting is I was going through all the theories. There was like a bunch of them online, and I was actually like saying it, and like he knows it all anyways. but I was just explaining it to him anyways, what I was reading and all the different ideas behind it. And he said, so what it is, and the man who made it clearly is in the afterlife. He was really old, so he died a long time ago. But the shroud itself was made by someone. What I heard was as a piece of art, actually. So artwork using experimental technology at the time. So I believe one of the leading theories had to do with either dye or light, some sort of like energy that was used to put this image on the cloth, and they were able to kind of like with reverse negative using modern technology for like photographs, make a negative out of it, and then like a lot of the detail came to light that you couldn't see in the original cloth. So but from what I understand, it is that's what it is. Someone who created a piece of art using experimental technology, scientific technology that was known at the time. So nothing spiritual. It was physically made and made by a man, from what I understand. So, and it's cool. It's amazing when you look at it, and you can see it online. And it's still one of those mysteries because, from what I understand, the church hasn't officially validated it. And there's some question about the dating and how old the actual cloth is, so that it comes much later after his death, for which I understand is true. So, unfortunately, at least my understanding, my answer to that is it's not. It's a beautiful piece of art, but it was made by someone down here, and not what it is purported or alleged to be. So, but it's great. Look it up. Check it out, Shroud of Turin, Turin. You can look it up online. So the other question, which I thought was great, is how much of the Bible do you think is real? And I focused, I guess I can break down my answer into two parts. And so I'm going to try to make it as detailed as possible, but also please understand I'm no expert. But from what I understand, so the Bible itself is a collection of books, right? It's not just one book. It's an attempt to understand existence by piecing together many stories and accounts and words from prophets and scholars, and like it's a collective attempt to basically understand what all this is and where it came from, what we're doing here, and where we're going, and what the best way, how to understand that, and basically live while we're down here on Earth. So, starting with that premise, the beginning, kind of breaking it into the beginning, middle, and end, I guess, of the Bible itself. The beginning, I believe, is not true because all this comes from evolution. That's what I believe in, have heard too in many conversations over the past few years about where did this all come from? Evolution, believe it or not, just like like the Big Bang Theory, like it can occur here in the physical half of eternity, just as it's a concept here, it can occur in the non-physical realms too. So, and remember, things are much more quicker and faster and possible over there because they're not limited by like physicality and the rules of physics and that sort of thing. So, but basically two thriving, evolving, unfolding halves, if you will, of eternity that evolved on their own, and are very much integrated to one degree or another, but separate in that no one created them and one does not impact the other. In other words, no one's pulling the strings and making things happen here. This is natural physical evolution with free will. Everyone here in the physical universe, this is our first time alive, which was what I believe. I think it's pretty exciting. I think that's pretty cool. And of course, once we die, everybody enters the afterlife, and it's fair. It's actually a fair process for everybody because it's evolution and no one really knows the answer. That's the idea behind it, from what I've been explained, is because we really don't have proof of this sort of thing, the fairest answer is to be fair for all. Good people, even people who do horrible things, unfortunately, even people who live like mediocre or, medium, good lives, and all get into heaven, the spiritual realms, if you will. There's no rules, there's no judgment. There's a process in place to preserve everything physically that carries over from humans to animals, all life, trees, rocks, dirt, you name it, everything that came to be and eventually dissipates or moves forward physically, they are preserved non-physically. And it is 100% fair and applies to everybody. So what I believe is there's no reincarnation. There's no, not in the physical universe anyways. And this is all based on free will and us figuring it out and that sort of thing. So to be fair, the process, which was established in the spiritual realms, to help carry over life from one realm to the next, and preserve it, is made equal for everybody. So creation, that portion of the Bible, I believe, is not true, personally. But it was an attempt, just like every religion and culture out there at some point had a creation myth or an attempt to explain creation. And that's what science did too, so there's a multitude of theories out there, and that's what I believe. To that end as well, the end of the Bible, I don't believe personally, is not true. So there's no judgment, there's no anything like that. There are other religions too that kind of speak to this sort of thing, like an eventual cycle of destruction. I think Hindu mythology talks about that. Christians talk about an ultimate, second coming, and Christians or Judaism, I don't know, something along those lines. But second coming, war, good versus evil, that sort of thing. Like the ancient Greeks and Romans had a different idea, about what happens when you die, and the gods, different gods fight over our souls and control of our souls, even while we're on Earth. There's a ton of very creative and well thought out creation myths, from where all this came from, what's happening, and what's going to end. I think like the Germanic people believed also in an ultimate battle between good versus evil that may destroy mankind. Like Thor, that religion, whatever it's called. But so the point is that there's a lot of different ideas about what happens. So I don't believe in an ultimate end, nothing controlled or determined by the spiritual world. Again, this is physical evolution. Our souls are ours. They are preserved. There's actually very strict rules in place as far as even communication or what can be done from one realm to the next. So the physical realm, life over here is respected and sacred. So when communicating and visiting and that sort of thing, things are taken very seriously, as is the preservation of our souls into eternity when we die. So I don't believe in that aspect of the Bible at the final portion. Now the middle part is a different story, because there's a whole lot of good stuff in the quote unquote middle part, I guess, if you want to call it. And so like with, I guess here's a good place to start. Like with any creation myth, it's an attempt to understand, again, where we come from and how to live life while we're down here, which can also be a determining factor in how we arrive in the afterlife. With reincarnation, we have to free our debt, release our soul from our karmic debts and that sort of thing. Or if we live wrong in other religions, you may have to pay a penance with your soul, that kind of thing. So every religion kind of leads to a natural structure of rules and morals and how to live, based on our relationship with God or the gods and goddesses, and how we should conduct life on Earth. So, and we're still trying to figure it out. If you think about it, here on Earth, there's a lot of different ways that we still view those things. So I believe in, as far as it being real, even though it's a natural byproduct of these kinds of theories and creation myths, I do believe those portions of it, as far as creating some kind of moral code or structure for people to live. I do believe that, and I do believe some of it was actually just to separate that into, how it naturally formed and information from like the actual afterlife or spiritual realms. I think some guidance came from both. Like, for example, I know there are other, because I talked to Jesus only specifically as far as my questions regarding this. But he did mention there are other, it's important because we talked about the difference too between healers and prophets, and sometimes people were both, or one or the other. And he said there were other people mentioned in the Bible that were also prophets as well, who tried to share the word of God, meaning they were able to communicate with what they deemed to be God or spiritual beings, and tried to piece this information together to share with others. So I believe in that. And he said that it's funny to kind of equate these two things to one, but he's like a psychic. He's like a modern day psychic, basically. So someone who can hear or feel or see things and attempts to nurture that gift and share it with others. So that being said, I also don't believe in his, he has real parents. Joseph and Mary, those are his actual parents. So the idea of him coming from God is, I don't believe either. So again, physical rules of physicality. Excuse me. Sorry. So okay. Sorry, I'm back. I had to drink something. My throat was itching a little bit. But so I talked to Jesus, and he's the one who told me too about the Shroud of Turin. These are the conversations I had with him. He's a normal guy with normal parents, and one interesting thought. And I did another video on this too. Like as far as the Bible, him being the Son of God. Again, I don't believe. And they didn't mention any women in his life or kids, which was suppressed. That's true. So there's some conspiracy theories that said this was written out or suppressed from the Bible for whatever reason. But yeah, he absolutely did. And I think that's pretty interesting too. So there are things that are omitted from the Bible as well that I also believe in. Now, I asked him specifically about the miracles because I believe in healing. Now, I think there's like with anything, there's a way to understand it and it can be applied. There's nothing special about it. You don't have to be a psychic. You don't have to. No one's more deserving of a healing other than others. It's not part of God's plan. I don't believe in that, So, but the nature of what we're made of, it is possible. It's rare, I think it would be happening a lot more often. But if you study it and apply it in a very focused manner, like going to school for it, I think some aspects of healing can be realized. So, there's a lot of schools of thought around that. There's modern science, but then there's also things like laying hands on healing and healing quantum energy and shifting and manifestation. I believe in these things. So it's not easy. There's a ton of rules in place to kind of lock our reality into place. If you think about it, if our thoughts and desires and everything just came to life immediately, we'd be in a mess. So, but he was very much a healer, and he very much, Jesus specifically, did speak with voices like I do, trying to figure it out like a lot of people do. I think it's great because I haven't always had this ability. It's something you can nurture and practice. And again, it's open to everybody. It is what it is. Just like we can hear with our physical ears, we can start to learn to hear with our non-physical ears. It's not reserved for anybody special, that kind of thing. So now, as far as what's in the Bible, I was also asking him, I broke it down. We're talking about his miracles a little bit, some of the miracles listed in the Bible. Oh, I talked to Jesus. I did ask Moses if he parted the Red Sea. He said no. So some of the more fantastic claims in there I actually don't believe. Like, it was funny because I just asked him real quick, and I was like, yeah, what about that? So, quick sidebar, and then I was like, hey, Moses, you got a second? It's really funny because, again, everybody's available, and they can talk to you anytime. And he confirmed, yeah, the story's not true. So some of the more bigger claims like that, and Jesus walking on water, turning water to wine, and having a basket of bread. I think he had like a couple of bread and fish, and there was like hundreds of people, and he just kept turning it into more and more and fed everybody, was not true. So those things were not true. Jesus said those things are not true, I'm afraid. But some of the healings and exorcisms mentioned, he did heal people and he did exorcise demons. And I totally believe that. All right, I'm back again. Sorry, someone's letting off fireworks outside, and I was like, holy crap, it's kind of scared me. So it was really loud. There's a bunch of them. Okay, anyways. So Yeah, some of the greater miracles mentioned. Jesus, sorry, they're still going off. So there were. He taught in parables and lessons, and sometimes through metaphors in order to share his teachings. So that much is true. But some of these other miracles they simply didn't happen, unfortunately. But healings and exorcism. So let's get into that. So this is pretty interesting. There's two parts of the throughout the Bible that I also believe, two major things, like the miracles of Jesus and also angels and demons. So put those into two categories. I believe in both. So and I'll kind of talk through that because I think it's really fascinating stuff. So healings, for example, I've seen them, and I've actually experienced that process and felt it and witnessed it. And I think many people have or have heard stories from people who have, and it's absolutely possible. And it is either generated between the people experiencing it. This is important to point out, or like it's self-generated within the individual. Like sometimes your faith and the set of circumstances come together where you can literally shift and rearrange your reality, believe it or not. And they talk about this a bit in quantum physics through a variety of ways to where something manifests immediately or gradually over time, reversing something that was already there beyond medical explanation. And sometimes these sorts of things can be channeled or understood and practiced over and over. And there's a lot of people out there who explore this idea of healing using physical or spiritual energy. It doesn't come from God or the angels or anything like that, believe it or not. They're not allowed to even attempt that, believe it or not. Because remember, this is physical evolution. If they tried something, here's why. This is interesting from the way I understand it. Healing was attempted and tried and that sort of thing from anyone in the afterlife. If something went wrong, they're liable for it. They'd be in big trouble. They can't do that. It's not allowed. They can't send you energy or anything like that. They can communicate with you and that sort of thing. Anything else where people believe they receive healings and like even when you may see an angel like sending you healing energy or that sort of thing, it can be manifested subconsciously through your expectations and beliefs without you realizing. Kind of like when we're dreaming and we see things and they're outside our control, they kind of make sense, but they don't. It's coming from our own database, usually, not always, our own soul. And we're just kind of randomly, our awareness is bouncing around inside our head. And that's why they seem so random sometimes. And sometimes we can control them. Sometimes they make sense if it's something that was on your mind, before you went to sleep. Point being is, so these sorts of images and things, like if you're praying for healing, you may see an angel sending you energy, if that's what you expect or believe, may even lead to a healing, but it's not actually allowed. So I do believe healing is possible. It just doesn't come from God or the angels. God meaning, I think that's a whole other video to do. So I do believe in God, but not a creator God, but a God of the pantheon of the Christian religion or Judaic religion. For example, there's Odin and Thor for their religion, and Brahma and Shiva and Parvati for the Hindus. Each pantheon, in other words, has like hierarchy or structure of gods, and they're all real. Just none of them have any impact on what goes down here. So that's the way I view God, actually. So not a creator God, but kind of the head of a pantheon or part of a collective belief system, which is real and which we can communicate with. So healings can be administered by us humans by generating this change or energy, or again, someone can self-generate it in themselves through prayer and healing and that sort of thing. So we have to do it on our own, believe it or not. Now, exorcisms are the same thing because these sorts, the phenomena of exorcisms, like demonic possession, are real. Now, from what I was told when I was having these conversations with Jesus, I was asking, are all the exorcisms that are valid where he actually healed someone? Were they all demonic possession? He said no. So not all of them. So these can actually be qualified as healings, or, like for example, correcting someone's belief, like, oh man, I can't stop smoking, for example, so I must have a demon, and he heals them, like something like that heals someone's ability to change something about themselves. But there's others where, people are literally possessed by dark energy. Now, just like angels can't heal, there is no allowance for dark souls or spirits to be on earth as well. Believe it or not, it's a very tight ship, Earth. Visitation rights are very strict. Like I said, no one can visit or heal. They can't do good or bad. So no one is allowed here. And it's collectively monitored by basically, the entire afterlife, the physical realms down here. So you can visit and talk to angels and even demons. Remember, like, demons they're good beings in some religions. Like in Japan, they have demons that are in charge of like the wind or lightning, So in the Christian religion, they're representations of evil and that sort of thing. But the idea is not necessarily evil or bad in every culture. So now remember, just like we can create, even accidentally through subconscious energy, like in our dreams, that can easily escape like our souls and emanate outwards. These sort of things, believe it or not, are generated by us. Either purposefully, people can imagine angels walking around or demons or that sort of thing and summon them, and they're basically creations of their own mind, unless you summon one literally and then attempt to communicate with them. But evil is not allowed to be here. So there's no one with that's monitored at a very close level, And so you can actually speak to demons from a variety of cultures, and they're a real race of beings, but they don't show up, and they're here strictly for communication. And that's how they can help. Same with angels, just like they can't heal you. Very hands-off. Anything we do is generated by us, knowingly or otherwise. So on that note, for example, like if you picture an angel standing in front of you right now, remember, what you're seeing is real. You're generating it, but you're doing it on purpose. It can happen accidentally too, like when we're dreaming. But if you picture, so something that you are literally visualizing in front of you, it is real because you can see it. So it is true because you created it. Now, these sorts of things are monitored, but it's sometimes our images can just kind of walk off or become something. Like when we create. So there's everything around us is this massive ocean of energy, and it's constantly at play with each other. Like integrate, like it's just one big sea of energy. So there's stuff happening all the time, and again, people can practice manifestation like of an angel or a demon for good purposes or bad purposes, and it can happen unknowingly. Happens all around us, but nothing purposeful is allowed or sent from the afterlife for good or bad. So angels and demons, I believe in their existence. I've talked to a lot of them, and this was a few years back. It struck me how polite everyone was. For that reason, strict communication and good things only to preserve life here and be hands-off, non-interference as much as possible. So some of these exorcisms, to circle back to that point, so were real healings of dark energy that someone either believed or somebody cast on them, or someone kind of believed was real and it took hold eventually, but he was able to fix that. So he was very much, in fact, a healer. I believe that Jesus was a healer. There were, now I haven't studied all his messages and collectively, like everything in the Bible, especially in the chronological order or in like a holistic manner of like completeness, to have a full idea really of what it represents as a guide to life. I get a general idea. But I think he did channel messages about, heaven being real and living a good life. I believe in his intent and underlying messages about that sort of thing, loving one another and forgiving and teaching the value of the positive facets of the human psyche or psychology to allow us to live better for ourselves and for those around us. And so I think he was I believe in that part, and that he had some great wisdom to share, and that it came from a source, in other words, he wasn't making it up, and he wasn't just like a psychologist that didn't have any spiritual abilities at all. Or anything like that. He very much believed in spirituality and communicated with the afterlife, and had a message to share, and was a valid and successful healer, and someone who could cleanse or rid people of dark energy, which I think is pretty cool. So that's kind of my overall take on the Bible itself. I think it is a valuable, very valuable piece of human history and literature and contribution to our evolution. I think a lot of religions are. And just to kind of summarize, so the beginning and end, I believe in evolution, so I don't believe in anything created or that has a date, especially one that's dependent on life physically and how we live it, that sort of thing. So if things are destroyed, it's going to be by our own hand, in other words. And then I believe a lot of the good messages in the Bible, and it as a kind of a moral guidance or guide for people, and that some of this information came from the spiritual realms and some didn't. There's some real prophets in there, Jesus being the main one, of course, for like Christianity, of course. Most of the like fantastic miracles that he was given credit for weren't real. Moses as well, like the Red Sea. But the reality of angels and demons and a God is real, just not in the context we understand it. But very real, and he was a healer, and his stories of exorcising people from demonic possession and even non-demonic possession, where demons or dark energy were involved, both true. So, fascinating person. And like many people I talk to, so patient and very polite. Everybody is. That's kind of a working foundation, I've realized, which is another great topic to speak to in another video. But I think that basically sums it up. So I hope that was interesting. There's a lot of good stuff in here I'd like to break up into other videos too, about angels and demons and their reality and how they can manifest and affect us here on Earth. The nature of healing and those sorts of things. So thanks again, Diana, for the idea, and it was really awesome for me. So I had some great thoughts and some great conversations, and I learned more about this. So it's very much appreciated. And at the very end of our conversation, I wrote it down too. This is pretty funny. Let me make sure I covered everything. Okay, good. I did, actually. So I was like, thanks. And I actually told him, I was like, hey, this came from my friend, just to let you know. And he said, oh, wow, that's great. Like, she sounds great, he said. And I said, well, she also wants to know, do you work out? So he laughed, actually. And he said, well, yes, I do, actually. And I asked him, she wants to know, do you have abs? Like, do you do sit-ups? And he said, yes, he's got abs. And then I asked him, well, do you bench press? Because I go to the gym sometimes, so that question was more for me. And I was like, wait a minute, if you work out, do you bench? And he was like, yes, I do, actually. And I was like, yeah, right. It's funny because a lot of guys have this conversation. So I was like, yeah, like, what do you bench? What do you bench, Jesus? So he was like, I asked him, do you bench more than 400 pounds? I can't, by the way. I'm like closer to like 200, which is not a lot, but it's not a little. But I was like, how much do you bench? Like, what do you bench, like 400? And he was like, this is funny because this is a real conversation I was having. And I was like, yeah, I'm getting close to, I'm right about 200. Guys exaggerate too. But I'm like almost 200 pounds. And then I was like, what do you bench, like 400? And he was like, I can actually. Yes, I can bench 400 pounds, like one rep at least once. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Guys lie, so he's probably lying. He's not lying. I'm just saying, he's Jesus. He never lies. So for the record, there you have it. And he works out, and I guess he can bench a lot. So, he's like 2,000 years old. So he's had a lot of time to go to the gym, So, I'm not like impressed or surprised, but, good job, Jesus. So, there you go. Thanks again for watching, and thanks again for watching, and I hope you guys take care. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.